dude, the most scary thing I think I saw, right, in the whole American elections wasn't Trump saying the cats and dogs things. Obviously I was fucked, but it was JD Vance's way of reworking that, because his brain is like conniving. I almost think he is more intelligent, like way more intelligent.
Yeah.
And he obviously, you know, if you obviously know about his past, he like used to call out Trump for his fury.
Yeah, he called him.
So
he called him Adolf Hitler to his friend in a private correspondence in 2016. Yo.
Yes, brother.
Jimmy the Giant.
How the devil are we?
This is I just watched your video. I'll admit, originally, people had shown me that you did a Why I Left the Right video, and because it featured Destiny in it, I was like, oh, this guy's probably like some fucking weirdo, but it's fantastic. Your video is incredible.
Appreciate it, man.
No notes. I'm glad that Owen Jones was able to lib pill you a little bit. Well, not even lib pill you, but
he stumbled on the video as well. He did a little post on Insta, and I was like, fucking hell, bro. Like, I don't know. I didn't watch loads of his. I haven't back then because you were just talking about your stream. You were saying how'd I go from him to Destiny. I'd say it was more the other way around. It was a bit more like I heard Owen Jones on the Chav stuff, went Destiny, and I've kind of reopened the Owen Jones, you know, content now. So now I'm sort of finding his stuff, and I find it more interesting now. You know what? I was literally just having a big conversation with another creator today about this, and it's sort of like Owen Jones, to someone who was kind of where I was at, is quite difficult to enjoy. I don't know how to explain, but when you're kind of, you know, when you got a foot in the water there, you kind of like him a bit more. Once you have a bit of,
yeah,
I'm yapping already, Hasan.
I think the aesthetics of it play a role, don't you think? Like, I feel like he's too he won't appreciate me saying this, but I feel like he's too effete almost. And this is even like being like, he's just like too polite.
Yeah, and that's exactly, I think, like a young lad who is quite laddie. I think you go to the gym, you do all this, you don't really see much in common with an Owen Jones. You see more in common with like a Joe Rogan, like, to be completely honest, just from aesthetics.
No, I agree.
And like, yeah, that's kind of the thing. They suck you in because they're like, well, you know, I find him funny. Well, I don't find Joe Rogan funny, but you know, I find that kind of ilk funny. They all go to the gym, and they all happen to, you know, kind of dabble in Trumpian politics. And you're like, well, you know, maybe. So you kind of, it's this sort of aspirational side. And I think for young lads, I did a second video. You might want to check it at some point. It's called How the Left
This
Lost,
video
like,
is
the male vote or something like that. How the left failed men. And it was kind of that, just the aesthetics of like young lads in this world that we live in.
How
where,
the left
like,
failed young men.
And it was kind of like, it's kind of like really just like the optics of, you know, we're in a society where everyone's struggling.
Bro, that haircut is dire in that video. I'm not gonna lie.
Well, on the thumb.
You needed it. No, your haircut in that video, you needed to get that shape up.
Right. I bounced between two barbers. One of them's sharp, the other one's he's learning, you know.
Yeah, you look Dagestani.
Yeah. I used to have like proper skin fat. I was a skinhead for a little while. Not, that was actually after the right wing politics. I was like, you know, that the haircut's kind of hard.
Oh yeah, that's funny. So wait, why is your name Jimmy the Giant? How tall are you?
Very short.
Oh really?
Yeah, I think I'm a 5'10" in Doc Martens probably.
That's not that short. What the fuck? What do you? Okay, you and I have different opinions of what constitutes short.
Short king to you.
Short king is like 5'4", 5'5".
Short king.
Yeah.
Damn. What's in the American water? It's the fluoride.
I don't know. I feel like you're you could be a short. Well, I always say, look, I'm a privileged tall. Okay.
Yeah, you are.
I'm 6'4", you know. So it's like, you know, I shouldn't be. I'm seeing myself out of short people's business right now.
You ever do that thing, or have you ever had a phase in your life where you sort of duck down when you're with short people, to make them feel a bit better?
I mean, when I talk to people, yeah, I do that all the time because I can't, you know. Sometimes it's hard to
hear them,
to hear what they have to say if I'm in like a crowded area. But yeah, I don't mock short people, Chaz. Shut the up. I am pro short king. I always say that there's a distinction. You know, you're either a short king or you are a manlet, and it's all about the vibes. It's all about how
All about the vibes, bro.
it's how you carry yourself that matters more than anything else. Is like if you make being short like the end all be all, if you make that your, you know, the primary gripe that you have with the world, and you constantly point everything back
Yeah.
to that.
You know, yeah. You know, that was something that I think threw me off the right as well, was seeing the red pill thing. Because, like, I don't know, you probably remember back in like the pickup era, like early, I'm gonna say it's like 2012, whatever. And it's like, you know, they probably had some kind of slightly fucked up ways of viewing women in a way, but at least the message was, look, lads, if you go out and you chat to women and you do your best, you try and be confident, you try and be yourself. Eventually, enough women you talk to, you'll meet someone and she'll like you. And then, like, all these years later, it comes down to like now people are obsessing about, I don't know, do something with your jaw, chew, like wear some mouth shield when you go to bed so you can. It's like, what the is it? It's not like an empowering message, and it's like this shit that I don't know. It just
Bone smashing. People are doing crazy shit. You know, that's really
and it's
interesting
so
that you pointed that out, because like, especially in that era, like I myself found myself frequenting bodybuilding forums and shit like that definitely had a lot of those opinions. Like things that used to be relegated to like looks maxing, PUA content, things that used to be relegated to like anonymous forums online are now all over TikTok. And I feel
mainstream.
like, yeah, they are super, super mainstream. Some of it's like funny stuff like miring. The concept of miring is great. Like, I think it's funny. But then some of it is like very like genetic predetermination. And I don't think human beings should operate like that,
so
and don't operate like that.
It's such a sad thing because, like, literally, you can tell lads just go to the gym, get a hobby, learn who you are, and put yourself out there. Meet, you know, just say hello to them. You don't have to overthink it. These people think it on so many levels. They're like, bro, you need like this. This is the line. This is how you say it. And I understand that just how life is and how meeting friends are. Eventually, someone will like you. And I really found it kind of sad when they get into all this like Andrew Tate era and it becomes so complicated, it becomes so mathematical. And it's like ultimately all you really need to do is build your confidence and just speak to people. And to me, it's actually like really sad what they tell young lads. Like it's really demotivating. I can't imagine being like that. Yeah.
No, absolutely. So you're saying that you saw inconsistencies within the right, going back to your video originally, that like caused you to kind of snap out of it. I don't know if you watched my whole reaction, but like I showed, you said you were a Young Turks fan. Did you ever see any of my videos back in the day or no?
No, I saw your videos probably 20. I would have only seen right wingers talk about you, to be completely honest. Like I remember seeing like an odd Facebook video of you like once or twice, but
Yeah. So in that process, at the time, like I was looking at, I always love hearing from people who have like changed their minds on things and like become left wing or developed a different understanding of the world. And it's what I try to get others to also engage in. Like I want people, I'm usually very charitable to people unless they've like demonstrated that they deserve no charity, unless they've gone beyond like a certain point. I always have hope that people can learn and change their attitudes, change their minds. And I think like we take a lot of stuff for granted. We take a lot of our social conditioning for granted. We think like, oh, this is just the way the world is, right? And I think right-wing content creators basically lean into that and present it as like reality. They'll always say common sense. But I feel like nowadays we've moved beyond that a little bit, and I think you kind of touched on it as well, where at least Ben Shapiro used to make an argument about facts over feelings, and he would still manipulate data to present a false narrative in the process of dunking on, college freshmen or whatever. But nowadays, the most popular figures on the right don't even do that. They just will openly go, no, my feelings are valid and your facts don't matter.
Yeah, the weird one is seeing, there's two like big moments that stick out in my head, is like seeing Ben Shapiro flip-flop on tariffs, like the old. You must have seen that video where he's like talking about how tariffs work, and he's saying he's completely right in that clip. How he's talking about it was probably 6 years ago, and then now he flip-flops, and it's like, well, I don't even know who he kind of just glossed over it. It was in like iced coffee hour, I think. He was talking about, and then the other one, the fucking dude, the most scary thing I think I saw right in the whole American elections wasn't Trump saying the cats and dogs things. Obviously I was fucked, but it was JD Vance's way of reworking that, because his brain is like conniving. I almost think he is more intelligent, like way more intelligent.
Yeah.
And he obviously, you know, if you obviously know about his past, he like used to call out Trump for his fuckery.
Yeah, he called him.
So
he called him
knows.
Adolf Hitler to his friend in private correspondence in 2016.
Yeah, but the fact he was so clever to take what Trump said, which was the cats and dogs, he goes, "Well, madam, whatever. If we need to do memes to get people to talk about the real issues that are really affecting the real people, blah 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 blah," and he spun literally accepting it was bullshit. I mean, he doesn't fully accept it, but the way he spins that to be like, ultimately, it doesn't matter if we do a bit of propaganda where we're kind of overtly lying, as long as it gets the real message being bullshit. But it's so, and I found out more scary, and just seeing like, the devolution of the right wing. Like, there was a period of time where if you're a right winger, I even say about like Trump, if you were someone who voted for him in 2016, I don't think you're the same as someone who voted for him this year. I think that can be two very different places. You can vote for him in 2016 from a different perspective than now. Now it's like you have to be anti, like, truth, like, I don't like, and just have no trust in the establishments that deliver what we consider truth, I suppose. And it's like that's such a different frame. I don't know.
I have a different perspective. I don't think people who voted for Trump in 2016 were irredeemable, and I don't even think people who voted for Donald Trump now are irredeemable. I think that it's the same exact pressures that they're experiencing, and I think that the right is very good at channeling that frustration to appropriate vectors that don't disrupt the hierarchies that are set in under capitalism. Like, it's not your boss, it's not your fucking landlord, it's not the corporations that have, especially in your country, like privatize certain key sectors like transportation, housing, right? Like gutting council housing, and all of that has exploded in worse material conditions overall for the working class in the UK. It's not those guys, it's the migrants, it's the immigrants that are coming on boats that's actually like disrupting society. Even before the immigrants coming on boats, it was the fucking Polish, right? That's what like a big part of the Brexit movement is that like Polish people are coming, and that's not good. That's fucking terrifying.
Do you know all about the kind of reverse Polish migration and stuff that's happening like these days?
Oh, they're escaping? And they're
like, from my understanding, I haven't like delved deep, just sort of peripheral understanding this topic. Is that in the 2000s they came here because, you know, better life, blah blah blah. They came here and everyone hated it. I fully remember like people being like, "Oh, the Poles, mate, the Poles, they're fucking taking all your jokes." Like, it was like the Poles was an insulting word. It was like saying the P word or like the N word. It was like similar. And you know, their country is now popping. Like, they're doing well economically to some degree, and now a lot of them are going back to Poland and they don't want to come here. Like, it's not appealing anymore, and it's like so ironic. I feel like what we're doing in Britain is like we're really taking our moment we're in and like the history of Britain or whatever for granted, that we are always going to be the best. We're always going to have this brand of being Britain. But I think we're going to I could really see it in 10 years where we go, fuck, we turned all the immigrants away and we could have really done with them. And we'll like have this sort of buyer's remorse from this thing. Because we heavily rely on immigration in this country to like power a lot of our industries, and a lot of like, say, the NHS and stuff like that. It's like, I feel like we're making such a short-termist perspective. And I truly reckon we'll regret it. I think like how you see it with the Polish people, they're going back to their country, taking the money that they've made here, and now Poland's doing well. And it's like, we're so short-termist. Yeah. I did a whole video just on the whole immigration stuff, and bruv, it's a fucking headache.
Yeah. And so one thing I wanted to ask you, what do you think about, because some of the pro-labor people in the UK got a little mad at me when I initially covered the expected results of Starmer's victory in the last election cycle, where while a lot of people wanted to be joyous in that moment, in the occasion, it's like, oh, finally we've put an end to like 16 years of Tory austerity. It's over. Like, these guys are done. I've been a big Corbynite from the jump. I've been a very big Corbyn supporter from the jump, and I had closely watched what happened internally within the Labour Party and the internal Labour politics of like basically destroying Corbyn from within the party and virtually collaborating with the British press, which I think is sometimes even far worse and way more organized and way more intelligent than the American press is. And I warned my British chatters that the victory that Keir Starmer had over the Tories was actually a minor one, and if they were to continue with privatization or continue with austerity, that the real troublesome signs for England were right there with the momentum that reform had gotten. And a lot of people were like, "Oh, you don't know what the fuck you're talking about." But I feel like it's becoming a reality pretty fast. In the UK, Nigel Farage seemingly has a higher approval rating than Keir Starmer does now, which is crazy to think of. Like a clown. He's a failure.
He's wild.
Yeah. He's openly racist, but like outside of that, he's also been a demonstrable failure as a politician, and now he's seeing this like momentum, this right-wing surge.
Yeah, this is fully his moment. Like, he's cut through certain times over the years. Obviously, Brexit was a big one. He stood down a load of people. I think it was 2019. He like stood down UKIP candidates in conservative areas. Like he's had moments, and this is like his moment. And I want to make a video on Elon Musk, his sort of war on Britain or whatever whatever the fuck he's doing. But the fear is like, obviously he's going to fund reform. And like, I don't know, man. Like, I think to be honest, like, I don't know. It's quite hard when we talk about politics and that. It's like, we're talking about as people that, we watch it a lot. And what you were saying, you were being quite charitable there about people who vote for Trump. You're all right, to be honest. Like, most people that vote for these people, they're not sat like us, like reading, watching, and all this stuff. They're just sort of, going about their life. They're fucking busy people, and they live in top. So yeah, but I think people who kind of voted for Keir Starmer, we all knew he is like a watered down neoliberal Tory. He's like slightly less. There's some history of him, like, I don't know, saying more things that, I don't know, you could say are more like left wing, social democrat, whatever. But it's like we all kind of knew it. And I feel like the thing I fear the most is that he will not bring about change, and he will kill any hopes of a left wing movement by just delivering centrist politics, which is it's not what we need at the moment. And so, like, yeah, that's the real thing. It's like, okay, you've had Tories for 14 years, you give Labour a chance, and if they do not they can't even just do okay, they have to fucking smash it. And it's very unlikely the way they're going about it that they're going to fucking smash it. It's just, probably it's going to plod along and get a little bit shitter. Maybe it'll be less shit than if it was under the Tories, but it's probably going to be shit. And then all you're opening the door for is for people to be like, fuck me, we just need a change, man. And like, Farage I always say it, Farage is a brilliant politician. And like, so is Trump. Like, the way that they go about and do the ground game, which the centrists, like the Keir Starmers of the world, they don't want to fucking touch a barge bowl. Like, Farage is out dressing up like he's LARPing as a farmer, hanging out with farmers, and like, he's on every hot button issue. And he's always there, and he's playing the ground game, and he's doing what Trump did. Trump was doing like campaigns the whole fucking time. And what Keir Starmer's gonna, I don't know, poke his head in a coffee shop like a month before the election. It's not going to be enough. Like, you have to do what they're doing. I don't know. I fear the Farage thing. I fear it more than I think most people do, because I can just see how it's going to play out. But.
No, absolutely. I mean, this is a similar outcome to what happens in American politics in every election cycle, where the Democrats slowly but surely capitulate to right-wing framing on issues, whether it be immigration or any number of different things. And then Republicans come in, they fuck up the economy, they fuck up the country. And then in that fuck up, a lot of people grow a resentment towards the administrators. So then they're like, okay, fuck it, we'll just vote for the Democrats again. But then the Democrats don't actually make broad sweeping change. And then inevitably an even more vicious right-wing version comes out and wins the election after the Democratic Party basically does status quo politics at a time when it's obviously necessary to shake up the system. I'm seeing something similar in the UK as well.
Why do you think like left-wing populists never? Because I don't know. It's so funny to me. I feel like if there was ever a moment that you could do all of the left-wing populist talking points, like billionaires, blah, 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 all this stuff. It's like the moment where Elon Musk has basically bought an election, and he's like hanging out at Mar-a-Lago every day. And it's like, surely this is like all right-wing populists are a left-wing populists with like all the talking points of left-wing populism, but with like, basically very right wing economics. They say all the things about like the working class and they always talk about the elite, but the elite is obviously like a select few of the rich people that we can scapegoat. But why do you think the left just don't? I don't know. How are they so like kind of useless on this stuff?
It's not that they're useless necessarily. It's that especially in the aftermath of the Cold War, where capitalist power is won, there is no alternative. There's no global alternative. I wouldn't say that China is like even remotely ideologically interested in doing anything similar to the USSR. In its domestic affairs, the USSR did a whole bunch of stuff that I'm very critical of, but like on the global stage, they played a role of being an alternative. It doesn't matter if I disagree with the things that they did. Like that's the way that people saw it, and there's no tent pole to align or to get together and oppose the current mandate. So there's just nothing. There's no alternative, and in that process, I think the media in and of itself is completely corporate captured, completely backed by the same corporations that leverage their bets and fund both sides of our uniparty here in America. But like you guys have a different structure, but it's still very similar in the way that it plays itself out, where you have this laboratory dynamic. And the issue is that virtually every institution is against any sort of serious progressive politics, because serious progressive politics are almost always going to be inherently anti-capitalist. And that means that somewhere out there, a person is going to lose money if these policies are implemented. Like,
one thing I think when I was probably seeing your content through the lens of right wingers, that I got I don't know if it's like the impression or just how I perceived the left was always kind of that you guys didn't love, like, I want to word this in a way that isn't like fucking wanky.
No
but
wrong
like,
answers. Just say it. Say whatever you want. Say whatever you feel.
I feel like the perception is, and I don't know how they get it, but the right wing on their economics, they make the middle class, like the person who wants to go out and set up a business and go and fucking, make something and add something to the world. They somehow make them feel included whilst they're not included. Like I was chatting with Gary's economics, geezer I mentioned in the video. And he said in one of his things, like, he's a really wealthy guy. He did really well in trading and stuff. And he made a fuck ton of money. And he was like trying to utilize his money to do something. So he was like trying to set up businesses and shit. And they failed and failed and failed. And he found the best thing for him that made him the most money was just buying gold. And if you think like, what value add does that really have to the world? It's like he fucking held onto a raw material and that was it. He tried to do, maybe agencies or whatever. None of those worked. And I feel like somehow just optically or whatever it is, the right seems to encompass the entrepreneur class. And it's like the entrepreneur class have it really hard right now. In some ways, like maybe the internet opens up a few more options and stuff, but they have it quite hard. But they seem to teeter onto the right because it feels like the right are more interested in like you go out and you try and do something in the world. Whereas like for me, as like I was saying, I'm quite left wing on economics now, but I still really love the entrepreneur class. I love like I always just sort of bring it down to, I guess, like a grassroots level. Like I love walking into like a little cat cafe or some weird little business or like a board game shop. And it's like a cool business. You see it, they do everything well. They're adding value to the community. They're making money. They're selling things, but it's like, it's a value add. And I feel like just for some reason, I got the impression that left didn't really, they saw that as a problem and the right seemed to champion them. Do you think that's just the way I've been told the left sees it, or what do you think?
I mean, I think that
like the entrepreneur
a lot of those businesses are owned and operated by people who are working themselves as well. It's like singularly like owned and operated by a family or whatever. And I mean, the class dynamic there is that those businesses are, on their own journey of becoming these like multi-billion dollar franchises. So they align with that class position, assuming that one day they'll get there. And that the right captures their attention more, I think, because they go along with a message of economic prosperity. But overall, I think the correct position here is that like you can have that economic prosperity while also ensuring that the working class doesn't get fucked over in the process. And unfortunately, I mean, look, I have a much more radical position than most people do on this, where you know, I have a small business myself. I run it as a cooperative, right? So it's equal say, equal pay. So my producer gets the same amount of revenue that we all generate together, and he also has the same voice in the process. He can, you know, choose which days that he wants to, you know, be a part of it. He can choose which days that he doesn't want to be a part of it. But many people are not going to do that, and I still think that the government needs to intervene to ensure that the working class is not gutted in the process. As far as my more radical tendencies, I think like I definitely go a little bit beyond, you know, Keynesian economics or social democracy in the way that you presented it in your video. But ultimately, I think you're experiencing the failures of social democracy because inevitably, no matter what happens, all of those reforms that are pushed for, if maintained under a capitalist framework, will be clawed back by right wingers. Like the NHS is a great example of this. They want to privatize it. They have wanted to privatize it for years, right? And you can't just like immediately go in and be like, nope, we're going to privatize it tomorrow. It doesn't work that way because it's still objectively a popular thing. It's the pride of the nation. But how do you do it? Well, years and years of refusing to fund it adequately, and then inevitably letting it fall apart, and then privatizing certain aspects of the NHS, and then inevitably privatizing it all. It doesn't happen overnight. These are, you know, it's the same thing with the trains, right? You mentioned the trains. You privatize the railroads, and maybe originally the railroads are maybe a little bit faster. Some of the lines might even be a little bit faster at first, but slowly but surely the profit motive kicks in, and they start cutting corners, and eventually you have a worse product overall. And the working class suffers in that process because now they can't get to fucking work in a timely manner. It ruins their day. The trains are never on time, and they get slowly but surely more frustrated, more angry. And if there's a guy in that process, like Nigel Farage, he comes in and he says, "You're angry because black and brown people are coming into the country, and they're taking away they're taking away your benefits." And this is
sorry, mate. Sorry.
No, my point was this is just what happens universally. It happens in virtually every Western capitalist country.
Yeah, I think because I was sort of I'm not like name dropping, but I was just chatting with Gary recently, so it's like on my mind. But he mentioned we have this geezer called his name was Tony Benn, and he was like an aristocrat, super socialist MP, like working class hero. It sounds kind of bullshit, but he was genuinely like quite an influential politician. And he had this quote, and this is I guess this is more the very far left sort of critique of capitalism, is that inevitably, or Keynesianism rather, is that it will always, as you say, it will fall back into that. And he said something to the extent, I'm going to read it, it's like, there's no final victory, there is no final defeat, there is just the same battle to be fought over and over again, so toughen up, bloody toughen up. So it's like, he's kind of sort of saying, like, what you are saying is factually true. I suppose he's coming from the perspective that this is a constant struggle that will always be the case. And I suppose there's no end to it. My like absolute optimism would be like you could raise educational standards to such a level that people would really deeply understand this political dynamic. They're so well taught about it that we can see the signs of it. Because I feel like from just spending time doing research into my videos, I've learned the signs of like what is fashion. Why do people call Donald Trump fashion? It's not that tomorrow he's probably gonna enact some, like look like Hitler, but it's the tendencies, it's the sort of ways of speaking, it's the scapegoating. It's like, it's not necessarily he is inherently a fascist leader. He is fascistic and he acts in fascist way, and you don't know where that will spiral to. And but I suppose where we would differ is maybe you see that there is a way out of that sort of constant battle, or do you think I do see there's a way
out of it. But I mean, the situation is dire because there is no counterbalance in the way that like the USSR existed, or in the way that socialist mobilization was happening at a time when I think the way that commodities were produced created a perfect opportunity for people to unionize and create labor unions to actively combat against these big barons of business. we have completely moved manufacturing globally to the third world, to developing nations. So now you don't even have the factory assembly line, which is so perfect for it's so primed for unionization. Like the route tasks that you engage in side by side with others allow you to understand class consciousness a little bit better. And the reason why neoliberals like Thatcher and Ronald Reagan here in America have smashed labor unions into bits and pieces so effectively is because they recognize the danger that these initiatives held. So I think that's what it is. There is no that is one of the major problems, which is why I'm always a big advocate for labor unions and union initiatives all around the world.
Yeah, I mean, I suppose that what you're saying, this is why I can understand your critique, and I think it is factually true. I suppose I don't know. I just think we can't go the other way totally. You have to sort of have this balance. But the thing that makes me understand where you're coming from is like the Scandinavian countries. From my understanding, I think Denmark, they have slowly started to like go a bit more towards privatization. And like someone I was speaking to, like I was doing a little bit on like architecture for a while. I was just kind of fascinated about like city planning and like architecture. Why is all the buildings ugly? And even when I made videos around that, I was still coming from a bit too much of a right-wing perspective. I was blaming individual architects and ideology when really it's just they're cheap to make. Ugly buildings are cheap to make. But whilst I was in this kind of like rabbit hole, I was doing like I was banging out these like little Instagram reels where I just go, look how fucking ugly this building is. It was super simple. And someone who made, I'll give him a shout out. Their name's like Copenhagen Ugly, and they were telling me about how they've started to move away from these kind of principles. The way they explained it to me was that the generation, and it kind of sort of sounds maybe similar to Britain in a way, but the generation that had experienced such benefit from these policies, they had become maybe lazy or entitled, and they've started to like pull the ladder up behind them or something like that. But I don't understand. I don't know fully if it's true what I'm saying, but I seem to understand that they are starting to undo some of those policies. So I get your critique, but it's hard to envision a world outside of that sort of dynamic of like Keynesianism or capitalism. I don't know.
Well, I mean, it's hard to even envision a Keynesian perspective, even pushing the needle in a social democratic way. Look at Bernie Sanders in America, or even Jeremy Corbyn. Like, regardless of their primary principles, regardless of the real principles that they operate off of, they understand the political landscape that they lived in. Right, the political realities meant that even if you are a socialist, even if you're an anti-capitalist, like you can't always advocate with that message, especially when you're trying to build a coalition or build momentum, build working class momentum specifically. Part of that reason is because of what you just mentioned, which is the idea that like, well, there's a lot of like small business owners who then find themselves in the throes of right-wing sentiment because they think, well, this is good for enterprise, right? Not recognizing, ironically enough, that many of the initiatives, many of the steps that the right take in terms of deregulation, in terms of undermining social safety nets, actually make it less competitive, make the marketplace less competitive overall. I'll give you an example of Tim Walz here. He is no socialist by any means. He's the governor of Minnesota. He was Kamala Harris's VP pick. I like him quite a bit. And Tim Walz instituted a lot of change in his own state, in the state of Minnesota, as the governor. He actually he actually signed into law paid family leave, paid emergency leave, and numerous initiatives, including, this is going to sound crazy for a British person, but free school lunches, which is not real in America. We don't have that in many places in America. Like there's a thing called school lunch debt in America.
Jesus Christ.
Yeah. Anyway, that's why our GDP is so fucking large in comparison to the tiny island nation. But
I heard something the other day. Sorry to keep your thought, but it was something along the lines of the payment system in order to facilitate this paying for lunches costs more than if they just fucking pay for the lunches.
Yeah, but that's capitalism on overdrive. You have middlemen over middlemen, and it's a patently inefficient structure. But in that process, a lot of mouths are being fed. A lot of people are making money. And that's just how it works. It's all, I mean, it's all capitalism all the way down. But the reason why I was bringing up Tim Walz is because he communicated why he did this thing that like maybe right wingers would consider to be radical, like paid family leave, paid emergency leave. He said for a lot of small businesses, now they're more competitive with the likes of a giant chain like Walmart. Now they don't have to actually offer paid family leave because now they can get subsidies and have the government offer this. And the same goes for healthcare, for example. In America, if we had healthcare, universal healthcare, not even the NHS, but like socialized medicine, right? Not even nationalized, but socialized medicine, we would be able to make small businesses more competitive with large businesses now that they don't have to worry about offering healthcare as a benefit, right? So this is a way in which even smaller market actors could thrive. And yet that initiative is never championed here because our Democratic Party is completely captured by corporate interests in the same way that like your Labor Party is at this point.
Mm-hmm. I really feel like the left, I don't know, I know you champion a lot of social issues, and I sort of fundamentally agree on a lot of these social issues, but I feel like just the political approach should be just to focus purely on economics in this era, in this period of time. Because I think when you argue things logically like that, like what you just said, or like what I was saying about the school lunches, it's like just economic arguments. I think in this period of time, and I talked about this in my immigration video, I was like, it's very hard to make people care about helping the vulnerable when they're struggling. Like, it's really hard to extend generosity when you feel like you have no generosity extended to you. So it's like getting caught up on a lot of these like social issues when really you can just focus on economic arguments, and a lot of the economic arguments will rise the boat. Like if you can move the economics to be more fair, more redistributive, then you rise the tide for everyone in society, and then you can move on to the social issues. I think, like, I don't know, I really struggle with the social issues just because they're so stupid, and they're just like so easy to like get people to get really caught up in this dumb ideology over, rather like, you know, things like fucking, well, I talked about in my video about the pronouns and shit. It's like, realistically, it does not impact your life the single bit just to say someone's fucking pronoun. It would be weirder to not. It'd be strange to like actively misgender something. It'd be weird to do that. Yeah. I think in this era, like the left wing economic argument is the really strong argument, and I think, I don't know, like I wonder what your take is on that. How do you balance the importance of sort of pushing for social issues versus these sort of more economic arguments?
If social issues are the only thing you're championing and you never champion economic issues, then yes, you will be belittled and you will lose elections every step of the way, especially when the economic issues, as a matter of fact, help marginalized people disproportionately more than it helps, I guess, like the white working class. Because especially, I can speak for America, where black people on average are poorer than white people as a whole. So any sort of universal initiative like socialized medicine, directly targets black people disproportionately. So much so that a lot of the social safety nets in the United States of America have been undermined by pointing to how black people take advantage of it in this country. Like, white supremacy is a really big motivator for a lot of people in this country that have caused the undermining and clawing back of social safety nets such as welfare. Bill Clinton also played a role in this as well. And he's a Democrat, right? He's supposed to be the liberal hero, the liberal champion. But like, welfare queens was a concept produced by the Reagan era of politics. And it was deliberately created to attack the welfare state, to attack social safety nets, to attack these programs that were supposed to help some of the most marginalized people. And there are more white people in this country than there are black people, and therefore more white people were taking advantage of welfare than black people were. Maybe black people were disproportionately, or black people per capita were taking advantage of welfare more, but there were more white people using it. And the undermining of the welfare system, championed by the very same white people that use welfare, actually ended up harming them. So my point always is, pushing for universal policies and then telling people like, look, it's unconditional. It means everyone gets healthcare. You don't get to carve out people that you don't like from this process. You don't get to say Medicare for all means Medicare for all except for trans people. Medicare for all means Medicare for all except for Nazis even. Like that's like something that I also always talk about, where it's the goal of these universal programs is to improve people's material conditions unconditionally so that they are less likely to succumb to the throes of right-wing sentiment, like fascist opinions, reactionary opinions.
I feel like you can maneuver the same argument into terms that will appeal to a right winger. So like fundamentally, I would say, I said it in the video, I was like, the reason I believe in these things is because I'm a selfish prick. Like the reason I don't want more crime is because I don't want my life affected by crime. And I think some of the things that I've had a little bit of breakthroughs with, I guess more. So I get some nice comments where people are like, "Oh, you changed my perspective of it, from being a right winger to a bit more on the left or whatever." And some of it is like positioning stuff into selfishness. So being like, "Look, mate, crime is bad. Like if crime exists in your community, it is bad for you. Your house property, your life, it's more risk on your life if it's great. You don't want to live in a shithole, do you? You don't want to live somewhere you feel scared." And like painting it more instead of empathy, which is sad that you need to do this, but like instead of empathy and compassion, just be like, bruv, your life is fucking worse because you're not helping these people. Because you're
I do that all the time. I argue for socialism from a selfish perspective all the time. I'll do it for homelessness, right? Like, this is not my initial position. This is not like I tackle this problem from the point of empathy first and foremost. But if you want to make a selfish argument against for dealing with homelessness, nobody wants to step on human feces. You know what I mean? Nobody wants to feel unsafe when there's like someone who's genuinely experiencing a mental health episode in front of them, right?
Exactly.
Nobody wants to see trash on the streets. But the solution to that is not to lock these people up and then release them later down the line when the prison population is overcrowded. Which is ultimately more costly. Exactly. The solution is to figure out where homelessness comes from. And you can look to other countries that have actually done a significantly better job of dealing with homelessness. And Vienna comes to mind. Austria. Vienna Vienna has 65% social housing. 65% of all housing that is readily available in Vienna is government owned.
That's mad.
And they have significantly less homelessness as a consequence of that. Even places like Finland, as a matter of fact, have implemented housing first homeless policies, like anti-homelessness initiatives, where first and foremost, they put homeless people in homes. Okay. And then the process of like rehabilitation begins because, or even Singapore, where the government owns all the land and all the housing units technically. So this is the way to look to successful examples and to point to them and to say like, this is how you're supposed to, deal with this problem, because like no one the liberal attitude towards homelessness in America, and I use this as a negative. I'm not, because I don't consider myself to be a liberal. The liberal attitude is basically to like either avoid looking in the direction of homeless people and act like they don't exist, or rather demand that every single person become social workers, like little social workers on the way to work. And that's a completely unsustainable method. You can't fix the problem that way. You are not fixing the problem that way. You're just trying to universalize the problem, right? You're trying to fix a systemic problem with individual action, which is like, it's like what they do with climate change, where it's like, fucking take your plastic bag to Tesco's and you'll save the turtles. It's like it's their way of shifting responsibility onto individuals. But I feel like going down, I did the selfish argument, or I tried to paint a selfish argument on the refugee, like I did the migrant crisis stuff. So I was talking about refugees specifically, not just general immigration. And like a big part of it in my head was like, because again, I'm sort of talking about this thing where it's really hard to push an empathetic view to someone who is also struggling. Like that's a hard sell. And so I flipped it onto like a geopolitical one. Like I was thinking about it more and more when I was doing this video. I hadn't actually heard many people talk about this, but like with the refugee, like the crisis where, you have all these states, like say Syria, etc. And they have civil wars.
And you are currently overburdening most of the developing world by allowing them to take the absolute brunt. It's like something like 80, maybe 70% are in the developing world. Of like the 120 million refugees worldwide, something like 70 to 80% are in the developing world, which is so destabilizing to a country that is already struggling, doesn't have the infrastructure to support it. And so I was saying, well, where do you think? So I sort of looked through it, and I did a bit about like the formation of like Taliban. I was sort of looking at the Soviet-Afghan war and how it displaced a lot of Afghans. They then were in these like camps, these refugee camps. They obviously weren't good living standards, and they became quite easy to radicalize, and it created these sort of like, you know, many years on, you have all these sort of big conflicts, and there's many other reasons why. But
would it surprise you if I were to tell you that the radicalization occurred even before the USSR involvement? That Americans went in and wanted to deliberately turn Afghanistan into the USSR's very own version of Vietnam, at least according to Zbigniew Brzezinski at the time, who very openly took credit for this. Hold on, let me see if I can find the actual quote. Does anyone in the chat have it? No, this is before Operation Cyclone. Americans were priming up the Mujahideen against the brutal USSR aligned Afghan government at the time. They were socialist communists.
They were like giving arms and stuff like this. They were sort of like poking the nest as well. They were like involved in the same. Either way, anyway, this is about sort of specifically about refugees, right? So you then put all these people into a poor country that can't look after them, and it is, they're living in terrible conditions, and it becomes a prime place for radicalization, and it destabilizes countries. Like you can look at like Congo had 2 wars, which I believe come from like refugees. I can't remember exactly what conflict, but they're refugees that went there, destabilized it. So basically what I'm saying is the argument you can make to these people, which isn't an empathetic argument, it's purely just geopolitical, is that if we don't take refugees, if we don't help these people now, 5-10 years, you do not know what destabilizing effect that's going to have on the wider world. And you're making a problem for the future. It's like, it's just sweeping something under the rug. It's like in the future, it's going to get worse. And this has been our approach in Britain for a long time, where we just kick the can down the road. And so I feel like those arguments, I don't know, I'm trying them and seeing how they push through, but just forgetting compassionate arguments, because I remember when I was in that position, you could never really argue empathy to me, because I'd always be like, mate, we're struggling. So like just sort of talking geopolitics and talking like, well, what happens if we don't help refugees? No one's really talking about it. You never hear Farage for a second think about that. What happens if we don't help these people?
Yeah, no, I think that a lot of people refuse to reckon with the Western intervention that takes a formative role in these conflicts that cause this instability to begin with. I mean, the likes of Jeremy Corbyn definitely do understand it, but they're routinely vilified by the very same media that is also backed by the defense industry in both England and also in the United States of America. So when you say stuff like that, you're immediately criticized. You're like, oh, dude, you love the enemies. You want to hug and kiss the enemies. These guys are bad. These guys are bad people. And your position is born out of empathy, but it's a good starting point for a lot of people, because a
lot of people it will appeal to. I just think there is a contingent of society, especially on the right, where compassionate arguments are always thwarted by what about our own problems. And obviously they never have solutions. They'll say, well, why are we housing refugees when we have our own homeless? It's like, I literally did in the video.
I don't see you advocating for socialized housing. Like I don't see you advocating for more council housing, And
I did literally in the video. I did like a Control F on Reform and Conservative manifestos for the word homelessness, and they didn't appear once. They're in the Labour manifesto maybe 4 times, and like refugee migrant is like in their manifesto like 20 times. Reform and Conservative, they don't give a shit, It's
but that's the problem though, because the new Labour manifesto or the new Labour attitude is also not great.
They just span on it, man. They just always submit to that right wing frame, and it's like, bro,
but it's not necessarily right wing framing, is what I'm saying. It's more so the corporate interests there at play, and they are beholden to the same corporate masters in the same exact ways that like the right wing parties are, which is why they have to take a more tolerant approach. But because they're not actually interested in tackling the underlying problem, then they just come across as like smarmy, woke, annoying shitheads. Like smarmy, woke, annoying, liberal, elitist shitheads who don't want to address any of the real problems at all. And that's the issue. That's why I think it's important.
I've got to bounce. It's quite late here. Can I ask you one last question? It's been I've really enjoyed chatting with you, by the way.
Yeah.
I just wanted to ask, like, what you read my tweet about Cenk. I just wanted to know, what is your inside perspective on what's going on with his? Is he like playing the game, or is it too much to?
I don't know, because like I am obviously a bit biased. This is a man who's seen me shit my diapers. You know what I mean? He is my uncle after all. But yeah, I think Cenk used to be a big fighter for progressive causes, unconditionally and uncompromisingly, right? He always would tell the Democratic Party never to cave and capitulate the right-wing framing on issues. And I feel like after years and years of not getting the results that he wanted to, I think he's given up hope on the Democratic Party almost. And that's a very dangerous prospect for his future politics, because when you give up hope on the Democratic Party, that's one thing. But after giving up hope on the Democratic Party, assuming that the Republican Party is going to do anything that is at the behest of the working class, I think is when you make that leap, or when you even entertain that as a concept, you're slowly but surely radicalizing yourself in the opposite direction. And I am a little fearful, because I do see like his opinions on crime are genuine. Like he just like legitimately has a right-wing position on crime overall, where he thinks like everyone on the left is you know, they love crime. They want people to come and like rape your daughters or whatever. Like he'll say like crazy shit. And we've had some arguments both privately and publicly, including in what I call Janksgiving, where he comes over for Thanksgiving. We just did that recently, and we talked for like 3 hours. But yeah, I think,
your pub conversations have got to be wild. I can't imagine when you lot have a few bevies.
Yeah, but we'll see what happens. Maybe he's just being optimistic, and he'll recognize that the Republicans are not doing any of those things, or maybe he'll just like continue to double down and be like, well, this is the real enforcement that we need to see here, because he keeps talking about like stopping the bleeding, where you know, the real solutions to lower crime are too difficult. They're far too difficult. These initiatives are too broad and too much in the future. And you know, when you succumb to short-term thinking and you want to like in your mind stop the bleeding when it comes to like crime or homelessness, all of a sudden you're looking into the right-wing position on the matter. You're all of a sudden thinking that the right-wing position on the matter is stopping the bleeding, when it is exactly that attitude that has got to this that has got us here to begin with, you know?
Yeah. Goddamn. Yeah, man. It's been really cool chatting with you. I really appreciate you watching my video. And yeah, keep in touch. It'd be nice to have a few more.
For sure.
Yeah. Keep doing what you're doing.
I'll try to check Cambridge Union and Oxford Union to talk about Israel-Palestine this upcoming week.
Yeah, you said Tuesday, yeah.
Yeah, let me know if you want to pull up to that.
Well, literally, you're like, as in tomorrow. You're technically tomorrow.
No, not tomorrow.
It's like midnight here, so it's like half.
No. I guess Wednesday and Thursday.
Got you. All right. So as in the 4th. Am I being stupid? Is it the 3rd or the 4th that you do it?
I think it's the 4th and the 5th.
Oh, I bet. Okay, I'll check it, mate. I might already be in London, so if I am, yeah, I'll give you a shout.
All right.
Sick, man. Been really cool.
All right, let me know, man. Have a good one.
In a bit, brother.
That was Jimmy the Giant, everybody. A YouTuber who made the video Why I Left the Left, and also How the Left Failed Young Men. Oh, fuck, it's hot in here. Or Why I Left the Right. Sorry, not Why I Left the Left. Sorry. I'm so used to people saying Why I Left the Left that I forget that there are people who leave the right.